Welcome back, guys. Now, just a quick video today. I wanted to make some sort of time-lapse video here, but I cannot use these clips at all in any way. So my OBS had some sort of my recording software had some sort of lag, so all these files that I had recorded here, they are all useless, so I'll not be using them. All right, so but what we were going to talk about today was just, again, I was just going to explain my thought process of creating this painting. This is Sorelle, yeah, you know her from YouTube. So again, I just wanted to kind of recreate this image, and so it was from a video of hers, of course, as you can see there. But I'm going to try to explain a little bit about the thought process about how I came to uh, this essentially. So it starts off with, I said again, I had a lot of issues with this because leading to this sketch, I lost even the first clip. Anyway, it wouldn't have been necessary to say that, but so I started off with a sketch. Normally when I started with a sketch here, you cannot see. I promise in the next video I'll show the I'll be showing you how I actually do it. But normally, because when you start out with a blank canvas, normally what happens is it it can get intimidating. So for me, what I always do is to get my brushes. So you can get your brush, and then I start out with one simple circle. All right, so again, you'll uh, you'll forgive my laptop, it lags a bit, but I normally start with a circle. Right, so you can, for all my paintings, it just begins with as if it's like a portrait. Right, I'm going to begin with a circle, so it gives me a frame of reference. Even for this face, I'll be able to I'll be showing you this in the sketch, but it all starts with like some sort of circle, and then I go in there and then I define uh, the midsection. And for me, the midsection means, for me, the midsection shows me where I'm going to put the brow line. Now, some people may be like, I put some people use this as their eye line, I think, but for me, I use this as my brow line, which means like the brow region. So if I see the brows like this, so it's going to be something like that. All right, and then it helps me to define the perspectives here. As you can see, the face recedes back there, so this brow will recede at the point where the face goes back there. All right, and also this brow will recede back there, so I essentially have defined a perspective on this face. So again, maybe here you can also see that the face has a tilt to it, so it could have so those are also things I put in mind. Of course, here I'm not going to go in detail on showing you how uh, uh, I'm not going to go into detail in redrawing the face, but I'm going to show you how I arrived at the final portrait. Okay, so I'm just essentially showing you my thought process. So then again, after here, you see once I put in the brow line, it automatically leads me into this kind of triangular shape here, where I can define that area that leads me into the nose region. All right, so it leads me into the nose region, and if you do this right, this part of the nose right there, this part of the nose, okay, so if we move in there, this part of the nose down here is supposed to come directly onto it's supposed to be somewhere along this circle, right? So for me it helps me define it. So which means the her head is coming like this and just moving around that circle like that. All right, so if we were to, like, let's say if we were to draw a circle on this face, all right, so my thinking process is that there is going to be some sort of circle like that, all right, that comes and just passes over there like this. So this is a circle that I always begin with. Why I begin with it is because for me, again, for different people, they have different people have different approaches, but for me I find that the canvas is sometimes limiting to me. It kind of brings a blockage to me, all right. It intimidates me, and sometimes it makes me not want to draw, because if you see a complicated gesture, for example like this, you may be wondering, like, how am I supposed to start this, all right. But so if you can see here, for example, this circle here will represent this area of the face, all right, this area of her face. So essentially I'll be having this area to represent this circle, and then as you can see now, so the brow region comes in there like that, and the eyes will be around there again, as you can see, and that, and then here down after that, if you get the nose right, all right, then I'll have the mouth, all right. And again, these shapes, unless someone is doing a very strong expression, generally the line, the brow line, so if I'm to go here, all right, these shapes are going to be moving on the same plane, but they will all kind of be almost parallel. They'll be more or less parallel to one another, all right. So the brow line, the eye line, the nose line, and that the general mouth movement, because when you're talking about the mouth, you're just actually considering you're considering the mouth movements, okay. You're considering the fat of the mouth, the muscles of the mouth. So but the mouth movement is going to be generally the same direction as the eye line and the brow line, okay. Even the ears, so in this case this ear will be higher than this ear. So these are things I think about when I'm going about my drawings. But of course this all I do visually here. I just do it in my head. I don't actually draw on the model like this. So once that is done, the most intimidating part is placing these features right of the person that you're drawing, and then you have the mouth, and then you'll have this part uh, come down like that, and then you'll have the first part of the face, okay. So once I do that, again, this is not the end all be all. This is just like the general landmarks of the face. You can see even here I don't have the hair yet, but the hair is going to generally be again along here, and it's going sometimes to move a little bit higher. So like for example in this case, considering I have a virtual line moving around her head, a virtual circle around her. So I'm considering this part. So I add a little bit of hair just above the circle. So when all that information is combined, if you come here and look closely, you'll uh, see here, if my computer will get me to do what I, if it will do what I want it to do. These are the refined drawings, okay? But if you can look closely, I don't know if you can see it on screen. uh, I don't know, but if you look closely, you'll see, uh, delete this layer. Let me just add a new layer. If you look closely, you'll see that there is a faint line going there. That's because that is the circle that I've been showing you. It goes and passes right there like that. So for me, I always begin with a circle, and as you may see that uh, before, I used to start with a different part. I used to start with this gesture where I used to draw something like that to define how I want the orientation of the face. That's how I used to draw about 7 months ago. But then I found out that that method used to give me uh, proportions which were not accurate. It used to give me long faces, and then sometimes I couldn't figure out my figure relationship to the area of my canvas. So I decided to use a more predictable option, and for me, I don't know, I just use the circle. I'm not sure where I picked it up from, but I'm sure I picked it up from one of the tutorials or something. I can't remember, but if I do remember, I'll let you know. But anyway, so once that is done, so I define the general proportions. Now here I'm defining the general proportions. I'm not trying to go for likeness. Most especially, the good thing with digital painting is that when you're working digitally, you have the option to lasso objects around. So that, I mean, you press your L on the key and then select an eye, move it here, move it there. But so that's why when I'm working digitally, I'm very, very loose in my definition of proportions. But I don't let that to be. I make sure that that doesn't become my habit. It doesn't become a habitual sort of uh, pattern. So that I make sure that I always draw on paper as well. So because on paper you cannot lasso objects around, so it forces you to actually think about what you're doing. In most cases, I can actually just go and uh, try to place more or less very, very I, I can try to go and place them exactly where they're supposed to be, depending proportions and all that. But if I'm working very fast and I'm not trying to think too much like I was doing here, I'll fall back on my lasso tools and stuff. So that's the first definition, where the first part was, and then I refined it to go here. So you can see now that, again, after lassoing it and then moving parts around, I come up with this. Again, you can see that the eyes are not looking at us, but you can see now that the face is much better than this, than the first part here. All right, so you can see now, like, this is pretty much better. And then, so again, after this, so you can see now I have defined more hair on there, defined the general hair directions and everything. And I go in for the again another refining stage. Again, this can take me like an hour to do. So as you can see now here, I know that this face is more or less similar to how do I figure it out? I flip my canvas to always make sure that my proportions are similar. When you flip your canvas, you'll see a lot of mistakes. I can see here in my small rectangle here that it's not very perfect, but I can see that it's much better refined. Okay, so when I flip the canvas, I make sure that I'm working with proportions that are right, because if you flip it horizontally, you will notice that some features will go out of place, and then you can correct that, and then that's how I refine the paint. So once that is done, and I'm happy with it, then I go into the stages of the actual painting session. So here, defining the backgrounds and everything like that. But let me first go to this stage. This is a stage where I let me first go here. This is defining the background, right? And then I get a hard brush, like some sort of chalk brush. I have one here that I've pre-made. It's not like a pre-made brush. It's like, I think I got a cloud brush from around here, and then I just changed a few settings to my liking, and then I saved it as a preset. And also this one, I think I pre-made it here. So I always use these two parts for the blocking in stage, which is this layer here that I essentially merge a, a, I essentially merge a layer of the sketch layer and the blocking in layer, because once I always get a duplicate, let's say I get a duplicate of this, and then I block in the light areas and the shadow areas. So for me here, I can see that the light was coming from this side, so I'm going to define the light areas with that kind of color, okay, this kind of color, and then the shadow areas with this kind of color. Again, when you're painting Caucasian skin, it's like it's important to understand that skin complexions, they will always have. Here I decided to go extreme because I wanted to explain this concept. Here you can see that her skin is pink, yes, but I decided to deliberately go against it. Actually, I show it in my in the recording, but because of obvious problems, it cannot show. So, but what it means, it's like you're going to have all these skin. When you're painting Caucasian skin, it doesn't necessarily mean that since you're painting a white person, you're going to use these colors. No, it just, yeah, because skin is going to be depending on the environment, and depending on the contrast that you want to use. If you want to paint a high key photo, for example, a high key painting, you'll paint from these areas, alright? So if you want to paint an average, like not so extreme, you paint around there. And then if you want to paint a low key, which I always used to do a lot, you paint from down here. But still you can paint Caucasian skin from down here, and maybe your extreme values will be there, and it will all, they'll adjust depending on an environment. So I'm thinking about this as an environment which is not so light, which is not so dark, but it's properly lit, it's well lit. So as you can see here, right, so it's well lit. So I'm going to get my areas around here, and then they're going to go high here for the highlights. So I'm going to stay within this value on grouping, but again, it doesn't necessarily mean that this is all you have to do, or is there's no it depends on various things like the saturation levels, and because you can also decide to paint a more saturated part by moving it, a more saturated skin by moving it that side. If for example I decided to add rim light, I would have decided to maybe increase the saturation and then go here and paint something like a rim light on. But for the sake of this video, I just decided to leave it the way it is and block in using my chalk brush to help me define the planes as light hits them. So again, you can see that this, for example, this color here is not the same as that color, right? So when you're painting, you have to keep in mind that because of this color is going to be lower contrast, it's going to be here, all right, whereas this color is going to be higher because this part is in the light area and this part is in the shadow area, so this part is going to be lower, all right. Again, this is self-explanatory, all right. And then when we go into the mouth regions, you don't want to go, if you go too much, you just kind of stay within the area, your value, your family of values. So but you can shift the hues as well. Most times when you're painting skin, you can shift hues to areas because to show like subsurface scattering, for example, you have to shift the hues to, let's say for example, if I want to paint, I can just choose this color here, and if I want to just change, when you change it like this and then you shift the hue, alright, you take it down a bit, and then you'll be able to paint the blood like light passing through the skin. I'll make a video on subsurface scattering, but generally this is how you'd paint the mouth, because the mouth has a lot of just skin on top and then it has flesh underneath, so there's going to be a lot of more what can I call it, maybe blood vessels or something, whatever. I'm not a scientist, but I know that it's going to be more exposed. It's going to have, its blood is going to be closer to the surface, so it's going to be a little bit more red generally compared to the all areas of the skin. So whichever tone you choose to use, I mean whichever light palette you choose to use, this one is going to be a little bit more to the red side or to the more saturated side of the painting. So that's my thought pattern when I'm thinking about this. And here I didn't use a lot of hue shifting again, because and you can see the effect that causes this effect of like it feels like a clay modeling. So if this is a way that when you know the rules, you can break them in a way and stay within the areas of your painting that you want to use. So you can, here I broke some rules by not using hue shifting. So for example, here you can see that if I was within the rules, I am supposed to, because the light comes here, but if you look closely here, there is some subsurface scattering there, and here it doesn't exist. I'm not putting it there because I'm breaking those rules deliberately, just to experiment, all right, to come up with something that's what maybe people may call your style or whatsoever, but it doesn't really matter. You just have to show it a little bit. Okay, so again, I'm not breaking it entirely, but I'm like moving away from it, not really respecting it to the full. The blending is how I just come here, and you can see that there are a few accents here. So you can see that this is a very high accent. From there to there, you can see that difference. So those are accents. They help make the painting feel real almost, right? So you always remember to add them a little bit there. Different what accents are, they're just very high values like that, but they're very, you paint them in very little spaces, right? So they're very high values compared to the values around them. So if, for example, I have this here, and an accent will be higher than the values surrounding it, right? And it will make it, this is the same technique you use when you're painting that spot on the eye where the light is hitting the eye and coming out on the other side. Use those accents and then it will appear like glossy surface. So yeah, so those are the blends. The hair again, for the hair, I'm definitely always defining the directions of the hair, the shape, big portions, directions. All, you know, all the painters, like people who paint, the good painters will tell you that, as at least the people that I've watched, they tell you that first paint the big shapes first and then focus on the small shapes. I'm still working on that. I always have a tendency of going in and then trying to define the smaller shapes, but it all depends. Yeah, I think they are right when they say that you have to paint the big shapes first, but sometimes you can find yourself painting the small details. So it's all subjective. You do what feels best for you, all right? But it's generally good advice if you start with the big shapes and then go to the smaller shapes. And then after that, so here I decided, just because of this, I didn't like the painterly thing that was giving me a hard time here, and my computer was lagging, so I decided to photo brush dress a bit by bringing in a texture. As you can see, it covers the whole place, so I just changed the levels and saturation. So when I turn off the mask, you can see that it covers everywhere. So I made it fit the composition which we were using. Actually, if I am to bring it in, let me see here if I can open it, if I can find it. It's this one. All right, so let's see if it will open, but it's still not this texture. So I brought it in, and then I changed the levels, and then and after changing the levels, I changed its blending mode to I think light overlay. Yeah, I changed it to overlay, and then I put on a mask on it. All right, so the mask basically was a black mask which removes everything, and then you paint it in to where you want it to appear. So I wanted it to appear just around here, so this is how I was able to get those details very fast. And now, as you can see, when we check here, when you look here, her eyes are like more or less 1, 2, 3, 4, and more or less 4.5 eyes across. But these eyes are not like 4.5; they're more like 6 or something. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 5.5. Why that is happening is because these eyes are small compared to the eyes in the reference photo, and the way to change that, of course, you just have to scale them up a bit. So uh, I scaled them up, and it looks so. You just scale. I scaled them up a bit. I don't know whether I did them justice, or but for me it looked wrong with the smaller eyes. And once I flipped the canvas a bit, I found that maybe they were there, but maybe I may have gone in. Maybe they're much bigger, maybe they're much smaller, or I don't know, or maybe they're on spot. I don't know. Let me know in the comment section. But yeah, for this is how I got to this area, and then I just added in that final dodge and burn just to push those values back a bit and here. And yeah, after that I came up with, so this was the final painting. It's probably not perfect, I don't know. So but again, it's all a process of learning and getting better. uh, so yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't show the time lapse of how I painted it, simply because I couldn't show you because of my software. The software refused to. I mean, it recorded, but it didn't record the details that I wanted. It's lagging. OBS was lagging. So yeah, I'll leave it at this. I'll be making another video in. Hopefully this time it will show, and I'll be able to show you all the concepts that I've discussed in the comment in this video. Let me know if you found value in this, and don't forget to subscribe. Talk to you soon.